How's it going, guys? The Same Gamer here. It's been a while since I came out with a video, but I'm here to talk to you guys about the prediction of E3 2015. Um, as of right now, it's a lot of Xbox fans and PlayStation fans, starting to speculate on what to anticipate on E3 2015. You got some uh, Xbox people saying that Microsoft is dropping the ball, and they hope that it's not a letdown. Um, I'm going to give you my personal opinion and why I believe this is the outcome is going to be. First and foremost, as you guys know, last year's E3 was not impressive on either end. Microsoft hyped up their E3, saying they had games, and more games, which they did. But honestly, there was nothing that stood out. You know, to me as a gamer, and mind you, I am primarily a PC gamer. Used to not be that way, but now I am. Once I built my gaming PC, I just enjoy it and I love it. Consoles are my secondary, and I really don't even use them as that anymore because both of them are kind of a letdown. That's just my personal opinion. It's not to bash either console. It's just to me they are a letdown. But my predictions on Sony and Microsoft. Let's start off with Sony. Sony right now, man, is on a big momentum push right now from the beginning of both consoles releases. Sony came out with guns blazing. Microsoft kind of shot themselves in the foot, I guess you could say. And everybody kind of knows the big fiasco about it with the DRM and everything like that. And Sony took that and ran with it, and they've continued to dominate as far as consumers and everything else. Sony is doing very well. There's only one major hiccup in the whole picture is the fact that it takes a lot of money to fund AAA titles. And Sony, even though PlayStation itself is doing well, does not have the money to fork out for exclusives, AAA exclusives. They just don't. Not saying that they never, that they won't come out with AAA exclusives. It's just they won't come out with as many. So with their E3, they may have some a couple exclusives, and they may not be new IPs. It may be IPs that's already been established in the PlayStation series, but nonetheless they are exclusives. So, that's something that they will show. But they also will show multiplats, and they will show the ones that they are putting the money towards as far as advertising, as far as, kind of like what Microsoft does for Call of Duty is what they're going to do with some of those multiplats for PlayStation. Which, it's a smart strategy because it is working. And so, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? With that being said, I don't really have high expectations. I think PlayStation is going to play it safe, and I think everybody will be satisfied, but not really be overly blown away. Microsoft, guys, I'm sorry, but this is my personal opinion. If Microsoft doesn't step it up and come to E3 with first-party titles as the primary entertainment at this E3, they're going to be in trouble. Right now, the odds of them ever coming back in this console war is very slim to none. I don't care what anybody says. Let's be realistic about it. If it was that big of an issue with IPs, people would have started buying, Microsoft's system over the PlayStation 4 when Sunset Overdrive came out, Halo Master Chief Collection came out. They don't care about that. They care about the performance of the games, the graphics, the resolution of the games, and I don't care what anybody says, that is one of the key factors on determining an Xbox or a PlayStation. And if IPs were that big of an issue for everybody, they would have stuck with an Xbox One. That doesn't mean that PlayStation has bad IPs. It just means that Microsoft is known to have very well established IPs. But Microsoft has to come out, and it doesn't even have to be new IPs. It has to be exclusives though. So, case in point, Halo 5. Let's say, you know, and it can't be games that we already kind of anticipate coming out anyway from last E3. These games have to be something that nobody has seen. It may be a first-party exclusive that everybody knows of, but the game has not been publicized until of E3. It should be any more Quantum Break as far as that being part of the hype train, because everybody knows that's coming out. Yes, it got pushed back. They need to come out guns blazing with bringing back old IPs, maybe from the original Xbox, or just new content. It's not going to help with the resolution deal. They're still always going to be behind no matter what. DirectX 12, I don't care what anybody says, you will see eventually when DirectX 12 gets released that the only people that are going to take 100% use of DirectX 12 is going to be Microsoft and their exclusive studios. And even with that being said, does not mean it's going to be 1080p 60 frames per second for every game. It's not. The resolutions that you see right now are going to be the resolutions for here on out. You may have one every now and then that may jump up to 1080p. The question is it going to be a locked 30 frames per second or is it going to be a locked 60 frames per second? I highly doubt either or. People keep harping on Forza 5. It was a locked 1080p 60 frames per second. Yes, but do you realize, do you see the anti-aliasing that they dumbed down in order to get a locked 60 frames per second? So in other words, it's really, it's 1080p, but it looks like 720p because the anti-aliasing is down. I mean, to vary, if it's the minimal FXAA, to literally no anti-aliasing. I mean, that's not really benefiting anything. You can do 720p with anti-aliasing and look just as good. It's the smoothest of the image, and doesn't mean Forza Horizon looks terrible, but I'm just saying, people keep harping on that like it's a feat within itself when it actually isn't. If you look at the corners that they cut to even get to that point. But anyway, Microsoft has to also do something with the user interface. I know now that I am not the only person that's having issues with this, with the Xbox One's user interface. Your apps don't open sometimes. It's very laggy. It's very delayed a lot of times. The user interface is just not a smooth experience. I'm sorry, it's just not. The Xbox 360 user interface is smooth, quick, fast. It gets to where you need to go. You don't have you don't have issues with the party, while you're in a game not connecting, stuff like that. This system is a terrible concept. And there's nothing that Microsoft can do to change some of these issues. This is something that it's the only way it's going to get fixed is if they come out with a totally different system. And I doubt they're going to do that. So, the expectations of better graphics, better image quality, things of that nature, is just unrealistic to me personally. Unless you're talking about indies, smaller AAA games that are not very demanding as far as physics and things like that, you may be able to get a 1080p game out of that. But that's, we'll have to see. But I honestly predict that Microsoft is going to have a mediocre E3 again. I believe both of them will, but I think everybody will still look at PlayStation and how they went about it, and I think that they will end up being the ones that ultimately prevail at E3. People keep harping on, well, holiday. Okay, that's holiday. That's a couple months out of the year, out of the rest. So let's do 10% of the year Xbox One wins out of 90% of what PlayStation. You're not going to make up ground from that, guys. So, no disrespect to Crap Gamer, no disrespect to Next Gen 720. Showstopper, I give you respect, man, 'cause especially this last Big Gamer Small Talk I doubt that any of you guys will see this video, but Big Gamer Small Talk, you were you know standing up to fairness. Instead of just being on the bandwagon of Microsoft, you were being realistic about it and how Microsoft is messing up and how PlayStation is messing up in some ways. But PlayStation is doing the things to keep the mass consumer. Period. And that's just a fact. And it's just one of those things, man. Microsoft is trying everything they can. I give them A for effort. But there's really not too much they can do. They may persuade some people to go to the Xbox One. But I don't care if Gears of War comes out. I don't care if Halo 5 comes out and it's 1440p, 2560 by 1440, which is a 2K resolution. I don't care. It is not going to convert everybody to go to that system. It's more that Microsoft has to do in order to get the mass community to convert to their system. That's just a fact. Sony has to keep doing what they're doing, and they will be just fine. It's going to be a rude awakening. You guys mark my word. Anybody who watches this video, just mark my word. At E3, you hear Microsoft saying it's going to be, they just said new IP. People are thinking they're saying, oh, IP, multiple IPs. They said one new IP, and they said they want to focus on IPs at E3. I guarantee you, mark my word, there will be multi-plat games that will take up some of that time. There will be some first-party IPs and stuff like that. But I guarantee you, it's not going to be what you think it is. As far as, oh my gosh, it's just going to be new IPs after new IP after new IP that we haven't seen. It's not going to be 90% of the E3. I'm sorry, it's not. They talk about all these games that they have, that they're going to have to figure out ways to squeeze them in and stuff like that. You'll see at E3, it's going to be a letdown. Period. They're going to try to overhype it again, and it's going to be a letdown. People are going to be disappointed at the E3 for Microsoft, possibly Sony too. I think the only people that are actually coming out on top is the PC community, and that's not because of exclusives. People can argue that all they want to. It is because, as much as a disappointment both consoles are as far as resolution and performance of frame rate, it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either one or the other. You either have a good a 1080p resolution with an unlocked 30 frames per second, or you take the risk on having 900p resolution, 720p resolution with an unlocked 60 frames per second. There's no game other than Forza 5 whose frame rate is locked at a 60 frames per second. You have frame rate drops on almost every game that both consoles have. Period. That's just a fact. And that to me, that's unacceptable. I mean, going into this next generation, before it had actually came out, I was looking at 1080p 60 frames per second being the standard. Well, I take that back. I'm sorry. 1080p 30 frames per second being the standard on RPGs and things like that. As far as for first-person shooters, 1080p 60 frames per second locked. No ifs, ands, buts about it. No questions. If they wanted to push the envelope, they're looking at higher frame rate. I'd say keep it at 1080p, but let's do 75 frames per second. Let's do 100 frames per second. Yeah, these TVs may not support that, but that's when monitors come in and things of that nature. You get a better support if people have, if people want to buy monitors and stuff like that, they can take advantage of the 120 frames per second and things like that. But that's not going to be the case with these generations. I honestly believe this generation, as a whole, not individualizing either company, will be a letdown, to say the least. It just is. I mean, you can feel it. I don't enjoy consoles anymore, man. I don't. And it's funny how times have changed, because now you look at how PlayStation 3, nobody hardly communicated on that system. Nobody had mics, nothing. Now it's like you get on PlayStation 4, people are talking and things of that nature. On Xbox One, nobody talks. It's like hardly anybody talks in there. at all. It's just crazy how time, how the continuum has just did a complete turn. And so that's just my prediction, guys. I know this video is a little long, and I know I may not be playing the best on here right now. I'm just playing, talking as I'm playing. I may not be doing as good on the gameplays and stuff, but those of you who ever watch this video, if you take the time out to watch it, even if it's 10 minutes or so, just let me know what you guys think in the comments section. If you guys end up watching this whole video, that's awesome too. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Like, favorite, subscribe, and I hope you guys have a good one. Peace.